We're joined now by Sweta Chakraborty. She's a risk and behavioral scientist. There's this new study that says that Chinese will live longer than Americans by the year 2040. What's your reaction to that? I mean, do you think that is...
I mean, if you've ever seen an American eat a cheeseburger, I think you'll understand where that study's coming from. But I'm being facetious, but really, let's put China in the context of global population growth. And so the most recent UN projections have shown that analysis of it has shown that we're going to be at 9.8 billion people on the planet by mid-century and 11 billion people by the end of the century. What that means is that we're going to have more people over the age of 80 than under the age of 15 by the end of the century. So what does that mean for somewhere like China, where we're already seeing this trend? And Northeast Asia generally, we're seeing Korea, Taiwan, Japan facing similar trends of upwards of elderly populations within the mix of their population. And so this is something that's really interesting to think about, longevity of life and also dropping fertility rates playing a real role in this.
You know, China has tried to address some of those issues. They did away with the one-child policy a few years ago, but you're right, people have been eating better, they're exercising, they're living longer. What are some of the concerns when it comes to these numbers, these large numbers of people who are living longer and aging?
Right, and so it's interesting because people are going to be living longer, and we know that. We know that the population is going to continue to increase in China. It's currently 1.4 billion. And it's going to reach peak population most likely around 2031 and then decline. But that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods in terms of addressing large numbers of people, not just in China, but again, this trend is happening all over the world. Even though some countries are showing decreasing fertility rates, that doesn't mean that the global population isn't increasing. And so what that means is we really need to come to terms with what the different makeups are of the population within countries. For China in particular, there is all the women that could have children that would stave off that peak population already exist and have either reached their fertility peak or have passed it. And so that's a unique feature of the population in China. In addition, 67 million workers are going to be out of the workforce in the next decade. And we're going to be doubling the size of the elderly population in China. That combination is really unique and it poses unique challenges, but that's nothing that can't be overcome with sound economic policy.
Well, there's the cost involved. You mentioned sound economic policy. How do you take care of all these people? How do you feed them? How do you make sure that they're healthy into these later years?
And this is something that China has looked into and has known for decades. It's studied the pros and cons of a lot of strategies that thinking about going forward. And so it is uniquely looking at the co-integration of economics and of demography over time. And so it's a unique combination that requires unique rethinking around taxation, around welfare, and how do you really encourage a population to adjust and move into this new reality, this new projection of what the globe is going to look like and what China as a country is going to look like. So here's what you do. You create a younger workforce that is higher educated. You stop promising pension plans and you start thinking about how to shift workers into high-tech sectors, and you invest in research and development. And these are all considerations that the government currently has underway, given the reality of these global population projections and China specifically.
Sweta Chakraborty, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
A lot to think about.